Sup guys, this is JusticeSoulTuna with another voice of JST, and this time to talk about a topic that I'm sure many in the FGC have thought about, or at least know about implicitly, and that's dedication. And dedication to fighting games means a lot of things, and it stems from a lot of reasons. The first reason might be that obviously you just enjoy playing the game, it's a fun game, you bought it, it's one of your favorite series, or it's a new series, and you thoroughly enjoy the game, so of course that's why you'll dedicate yourself to it, either casually or competitively. You might like the characters, the aesthetic, you might like the graphics, the art style, the music, just the presentation that draws you to the game and keeps you there. That might be why you dedicate yourself to it. For other people, it might be the competition, it might be the ability to play your friends or play at a national level against different competitors, either online or offline. Other people, it might be I don't know, just because their friends play it. Maybe it's something of a social event, like you go to your friend's house and you play the odd fighting game, have a few rounds just to see who's the best at, a certain game or with a certain character. So there's a lot of reasons to dedicate yourself in a fighting game, but I think the core dedication, while very different, it's all the same. It's all about how we spend time with this, with these games to try and get good at them and see how far we can get and grow as a player. But what happens a lot of the time, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, what happens a lot of the time is dedication doesn't go too far, because just as you might have a plethora of reasons for being dedicated, you have a lot of reasons for, lacking dedication. As I said, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes life just gets in the way. Sometimes you have obligations, sometimes you have school to deal with, work to deal with, perhaps, personal issues, whatever. Like, there's a lot of real life things that get in the way, and that's fine, because in the end of the day, we do live in the real world. But with dedication to a fighting game, when you want to be at a certain level, or you want to compete at a certain level, be it casually or competitively, there is a certain amount of time, effort, and skill that needs to be put into the game. Because the thing is, if you understand your position, your current position, you understand how much time and effort you can put into the game, then you can't be too surprised if the output you're getting isn't that great. Some people are talented and they do a bit better than others, fair enough, but not everybody has a natural aptitude for every single game they touch. So even if they play their best, given a certain amount of time and dedication, doesn't work. See, certain games take a decent amount of time and dedication, and the time dedication is different for each game because it depends on what you're focusing on. With Cross Tekken, it's a focus more on technology, keeping your execution up, understanding matchups, that kind of thing. Although I wouldn't say matchups are too much of a horror, because with two characters you can always mix it up. With a game like Marvel, it's basically understanding how to put together the best team with assists, spending hours in training mode, getting your combos down perfectly, being able to understand how to deal with incoming and how to use offense on incoming. Obviously Street Fighter is very basic, very footsie orientated, and so on. So each of these games requires a certain amount of dedication and time that requires the player to put in the time to get somewhere. But I feel like a lot of the time people don't spend that time on it, and I'd say it's perfectly fine if you've got legitimate life reasons. Obviously nobody can fault you for that, because nobody's going to say that, oh, why aren't you wasting your life to play this video game? No, of course not. But people who can dedicate their time, effort, and money into their passion can certainly get a lot out of it. But I find that sometimes people who say they want to be dedicated give up easily, and trust me, there's a lot of reasons people might give up. It could be you're frustrated at the game's mechanics, you're frustrated at the characters, you're frustrated at how you can't win, you're frustrated at maybe you win too much and people hate you because of it. There's a lot of reasons, but I think those are legitimate reasons insofar as it's something that bothers you because you want to do better as a player, you want to win more, you want to understand more. But if these are subjective standards that you've placed upon yourself that are unrealistic and unattainable, then I think you're only hurting yourself and nobody else is suffering from how you feel salty over something that isn't anybody's fault. So if that's the case, then fair enough. I think it was said once that you can never know if you're good at something until you try. And a lot of the times we don't try something either because we have, one, a subjective standard against it, or we quite genuinely think that we can't do it. That we can, we think it's frustrating or annoying, we don't want to try it, or we believe it's not going to work for us. And I think a lot of things in fighting games, it's surprising how much people hold themselves back with their own ideas, their own ideals even. because a lot of the time you can just choose to just do something, to try something out, try out that character, try out that tactic, look up that tutorial, do something that requires you to, something that helps you, I should say, learn something new. Because a lot of the time, if we don't make that effort, nobody's going to make it for us. Like, sure, we can come across different videos, tutorials, and things that help us out, but a lot of the time, nobody's going to come to you and say, hey, look, all this great stuff, I think you should do it. You'll be a better player because of it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to, like, hand that out to you sometimes. You have to actually seek it out, and that's part of dedication. Dedication to a fighting game means understanding the competitive nature of it and actively seeking and understanding ways to, you know, make it malleable, make it, you know, fit to the way you play and your, you know, your conceptions. And I think that's a great thing, but too often, not only are people scared to seek advice, which is a matter of pride. I mean, personally, I have the same issue because, I mean, just as an aside, with pride, the problem is that you feel like you don't want to ask for help because you want to figure out everything on your own or figure out everything like from what the game tells you. But sometimes a game won't tell you everything. Like basic tutorial games like Cross Tekken, for example, and Tag Tournament 2, they give you the general idea of the game, definitely, and they tell you a lot about the basic system mechanics to get you started. The rest you'll have to figure out either from playing or asking other people. But some games don't tell you anything. They just throw you out in the dark and you have to figure out everything on your own. And if you don't ask for help or seek help yourself, you might never know. See, pride hurts in that sense, because if you don't spend that time to figure out these things, then, you know, it won't do well. And that's not to say you should just always look up something, look up, you know, combos and don't make any of your own. No. A lot of the time you can put dedication and time yourself into figuring out stuff, and figuring out stuff on your own is definitely rewarding. However, sometimes it's good to get that extra bit. Like, sometimes it's good to watch a video and learn something from your character that you probably didn't know about, because I always do. Everybody does. You learn new tech that you've never seen before. I mean, it's good definitely to learn on your own. And I think the problem with people like myself who have that pride where we want to figure out stuff on our own is we sometimes feel like, I don't know, we get brownie points, invisible brownie points for doing it, but in a competitive scene, it's a bit of a folly, because to think that if you figure out stuff on your own, you get brownie points, and that makes you feel good about figuring out stuff, as opposed to, say, getting the competitive edge by understanding a lot about your character and, you know, knowing more than you already know. That's what tutorials are for. That's what demonstrations are for. You know, without those, you wouldn't learn or see these new things. And obviously, you can figure out a lot on your own, but there's only so much you can learn. So it doesn't hurt to look for help for sometimes, seek advice sometimes. You know, talk to people, go on forums, all that kind of thing. All this is part and parcel of dedication. Because if you don't put that dedication in, as I said, like, sometimes your output won't be that great. I mean, I don't want to demonize anybody. I don't want to belittle anybody, because as I said, I appreciate people who play at different levels, competitive and casual. And even using those terms is restricted even in and of itself. Because I would then say that somebody who puts in a certain amount of dedication but expects more than they put in, it's not always legitimate. I don't even mean in terms of like just direct success, because anybody can win a match, but not everybody can be good, not everyone can be consistent. Sometimes people will put in only 1 or 2 hours, learn the very basic stuff, and not understand why they're doing too much. Like, for example, I saw a video yesterday when I was doing Blast Unlimited, where a couple of players, they were both C rank on Street Fighter Cross Tekken, they were doing pretty suboptimal combos. Like, there was this Nina who was doing, on incoming, she would do light medium geyser cannon, light medium geyser cannon. Like, she wouldn't do crouch heavy, she wouldn't do skull splitter. And that's fine, perhaps at the level this person is at, because they probably didn't know about this, or they can't execute it. So of course, until they get to that point where they can execute it, then they'll never get that max damage. Now see, it's easy to think that, yeah, I learned this light medium geyser cannon, like I've got myself a combo, right? And it's true, you do have yourself a combo, and it hurts. But the problem is, compare that to a Nina who's doing the full string, gets like 30 to 40% max damage. If you're not doing that, then you might not be able to win the match, because let's just say your Nina with your light medium geyser cannon goes up against a Nina with crouch heavy skull splitter geyser cannon, who does way more damage and, you know, much quicker, will probably defeat you much faster. In the game of attrition, she's gonna win, while that Nina's gonna win, primarily because she put that dedication into learning how to do that. And if you don't do that, you might not win. Of course, anybody, and myself included, have gotten places using suboptimal combos, but if you want to really reach that highest peak, you have to, strive for better, understand better. I'm not saying everyone has to do it from the very beginning. Not everybody can. Like, execution's tricky. Even sometimes I struggle to still get crouch heavies in certain combos. It takes practice. Everybody needs to practice. But with dedication, it means having to put some effort into. And in fact, speaking of Nina, the funny thing about Nina for me is, even though I played Nina a bit recently, I used to not want to try her because of her move, her overhead move. I think Ivory Cutter. What annoys me about that move is the input. The input is light button and medium kick, which, if you look at your fight stick or you look at your controller, is a very silly input, because it involves like either using two fingers in a weird way or crossing your thumb or whatever. It's a very annoying input. I don't like it, and it's part of what put me off playing it. But for so long I'd wanted to play it, but I thought, oh, but that input, and I know that's a central part of her combos, I don't know. But then I remembered that axiom that, you'll never know if you're good at something or if you can do something until you try it. So I tried it, practiced a bit, and I felt stupid. I felt stupid for not even bothering to try her to see if I could do it, because I'd done her trials or whatever, played her arcade, but I never actually sat down properly in the lab, in the training room, to actually think about how to use her properly. So once I did, I was like, oh, well, I should have realized that while this input is stupid, it is still possible, otherwise people wouldn't do it. So being able to play Nina now, and I think I'm not trying to say that like playing any and every character is easy, because sometimes half of the character play battle doesn't even come from execution or knowing their moves. It comes from like the mindset. Every character is different. They have different walk speeds, different jump speeds, arcs, and all that. And even the mindset of playing the character is strange. In fact, I'd say it took me watching a lot of Nina play, and I mean a lot of Nina play, to fully understand how you're supposed to play the character. Because some people don't know that. Like, to me, I used to ask myself, oh, how do people not understand how to play certain characters? But then I realized I can't play certain characters. So without that experience, without either playing against Ninas or watching Ninas, I have no clue how I'm supposed to play Nina. Like, I can pick up the character and press a few buttons, but I wouldn't understand. See, this is another layer of dedication. Observation, like looking at other people's play to understand how to either better your character or learn a new one, because sometimes it's not as simple as just doing certain things, because it's not so much that you'll be doing something wrong, but you won't always be doing it right either. And I think if you just pick Nina and let's just say do light, medium, geyser cannon, as good as that is, that's not optimal damage, and eventually you have to learn how to do optimal damage. So that's that sort of thing. I think games like Street Fighter Cross Tekken, games like normal Tekken, Street Fighter to an extent, Dead or Alive especially, because on the surface it's simple, but the depth is pretty big. Marvel and so on, like modern fighting games, even so far back as like older fighting games such as the original Guilty Gear X2, the KOF series, games like KOF 98, 2K2, and so on. A lot of these games, while they might be, some of them might be more quote-unquote honest than others, what tends to happen with these games is like people might pick up and play, and it might be fun either because it gives them instant gratification or it doesn't. But with a lot of the time, if a game doesn't give you that instant gratification of, well, winning or doing something, feeling accomplished, maybe getting a combo easily, or doing something fun, then people are quick to throw it down. As I said, like, if you have legitimate reasons, i.e. life reasons, then obviously nobody's going to fault you for that. But if you have the time, you want to put time and effort into fighting games, then it's kind of sad to see somebody quit early. Because either if it's due to, one, you don't understand the game, or you perhaps are still trying to grasp your characters or situations, then that takes effort, that takes time, and it might take a while. But when people play a fighting game like Cross Tekken, for example, or maybe I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example, maybe Guilty Gear or something, they play a little bit, they lose a bit, and they then feel like, I can't play, I can't do this, I don't want to really try. They want that instant gratification. They feel like, oh, well, I've trained a couple of hours, I've played a few matches, why aren't I beating people? Because, I don't know, it takes time to get there. Nobody starts out like perfect. People start out good, definitely. In fact, games like Cross Tekken and DOA, you start out pretty good. Everyone starts out at a good standard, a decent standard of good that allows you to play. But not everybody can be, well, amazing, godlike 30-hit combos from the very beginning. That takes time. I mean, when I fight certain people in Cross Tekken, and I might beat them, they might get frustrated thinking, oh, why can't I beat you? Oh, I've trained so much, like, I don't understand. And I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm saying, like, of the few people on Earth that I can beat, when I do beat them, like, whoa, why can't I beat you? This is so confusing. It's like, you need to remember one thing. I've been playing Cross Tekken for a year. Like, I've dedicated myself to it to understand it better, to get good at it. I wasn't this good before. If you look at my older videos, you'll see how I used weak execution, simple moves and stuff to win. It's only now that I'm really hitting hard with all of the heavies and all of like the complicated corner combos and so on. I didn't used to be able to do that. It took time and dedication to the game. Like, and with Tekken Tag Tournament 2, even though I haven't put much of that on YouTube, a lot of that's come from my history with Tekken, first of all, from like even as far back as Tekken 2. As well as playing Tag 2 offline for a long time, as in training offline, learning moves offline, and playing with my friends offline before I actually went on ranked, and then I was able to beat that guy because I just knew the matchup, I knew what to do. Because if I hadn't put that dedication in, I couldn't have done it. Of course, you can get lucky, and of course you can still do well at a lower level, but I'm saying the consistency that you want to get through being a good player takes a while. Now, it's not all easy, as I said, and sometimes it takes effort to understand how to grasp the character, or how to understand, I think I said grasp, how to grasp the character and understand like what to do with them in certain situations. But a lot of the time, as I said, it takes time, because if you enjoy something enough, if you like something enough, then go for it. Now, to give you a quick analogy, like, obviously people know that I play Jin, as in Jin Kazama, in both Tekken and in Street Fighter Cross Tekken. The thing about Jin to me is, like, okay, he's very anime, first of all. So, of course I was gonna like him. But when I first played Tekken 4, years back, like way before I was into competitive gaming, I saw Jin on the cover. Now, see, I didn't know that was Jin on the cover. I just saw him, and I thought, I want to play this character. I didn't really consider, like, the moves I had to learn or the depth of it. I just said, this character looks cool. I want to play him. And, of course, I played him in Tekken 4 at a casual level. Didn't really know I was doing too much, but I at least understood his moves and how to use him. In Tekken 5, when he returned, I was like, awesome, I get to use him again. He's a bit different, but he's still fun. You know, Tekken 6, I actually learned him properly. In Tag 2, now I know how, like, you know, how to do his moves, although I don't know everything. I still need to sit down in Tag 2 to learn all his moves. But in Street Fighter Cross Tekken, like, obviously you've seen my teams transform a lot. You've seen, I used to, you know, I play Ryu on point, I used to play Kazuya on point, now I play Lars ever since the DLC came out. But the one character that's remained constant is Jin. And some people might say, although not many people will criticize me for it, but some people might say, in fact I might agree with them, that Jin might not be, or well, actually no, he didn't used to be my strongest character, or he didn't used to be that good on the team. For quite a while, I felt like Jin was the liability. I felt like if Kazuya or Lars got their health down, Jin had to kind of carry them, and that became difficult for me because I just felt like Jin just wasn't up to snuff. And it's strange because at the time, for each stage that I was at, I felt like I knew everything that Jin players knew. I mean, Jin players, we kind of evolved at the same time, so we all knew the same stuff, we all knew the same combos, but I just felt like, I feel like he's not good enough. And, I mean, to end the story without, like, going on for a big rant about playing Jin Kazama, but eventually what ended up happening was I kind of almost forgot how to play Street Fighter Cross Tekken for a day, and for the life of me, I could not play Lars. I don't know why. I couldn't hit anything. I couldn't hit stand heavy after Rising Storm. I couldn't DP switch. I know, it's really weird. Like, I just couldn't play Lars for the life of me one of those days. And I was playing Jin, and I'd noticed that for quite a while, I didn't focus on, like, Jin's general gameplay. I'd always learn a new combo that I saw or something, but I'd completely forgotten to rely on learning Jin. So what I had to do was I put Jin on point for a while, something I never do. I never used to do. I used to feel like, Jin, he just doesn't work on point. Other people play Jin on point, but I don't. And I just said, you know what, let me put Jin on point for a while. Let me see how it goes. If it changes anything, probably not. Putting Jin on point was pretty eye-opening, because now that he's the point character, not that, like, this is so much of, you know, a strategy game or whatever, now that he's the point character, the dynamic changes. Now see, I'm content enough with my Lars that if he ends up having to carry this like, then it's fine. But having Jin as the point character gives you completely new perspective. Now I think that's one thing that you need to do in fighting games. Like, switch up how you do something. If it's a team-based game, change the order. If it's a single-player game, change your tactics or use different moves. Or use moves that you've never used before to see how well they work against certain people with certain characters. And playing Jin like that, opened my eyes. And I think it made me a better Jin player. And I feel like, finally, after a long time, my Jin is up to par with my Lars. And being able to play those two at pretty much the same level was really exciting for me, and it was an accomplishment. It took a year. It took a whole year, but I finally felt like my Jin is finally on the level of my Lars. And that felt great, because I think with Lars, I'd learned pretty much everything. I was decent, and I knew what to do with him. So once he kind of hit that slow point where he doesn't get that much XP anymore, and it kind of takes a while, a bit of a grind, with Jin, I felt like, oh, but where's Jin? Jin needs to get up there. And now that Lars' like progress kind of slowed down a bit, like Jin had a lot of room to grow. So when I got there, I was like, great. And see, I couldn't have done that if I wasn't dedicated. I couldn't have done that if I didn't try. Trust me. Even though I said I've never dropped Jin, and I never will, there have been many times where I thought of doing that. There's many times I thought of quitting Cross Tekken, or just quitting fighting games in general due to whatever event. But I knew to myself that, but is that going to make my Jin better? Is that going to make my gameplay better? Am I going to be a better player by just saying, whatever, can't do it? If I don't try, how will I know? How will I know I can't do it? Of course, maybe I didn't have the time, or maybe stuff was going on, but once I got the time, I'm like, well, what's my excuse for not attempting to get better with this character, or doing more? And I think that's what I want players to do. That's why players who are good do, and that's why I hope people who aspire to be good do as well, that they believe that if they put the time in, the dedication, the effort, they can get far, because they can learn a lot of things purely by saying, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to see this done. Now, obviously, Jin Kazama is one of my favorite characters, and even though he's not my quote-unquote main in it, like in Tekken, because Lee's my main in Tekken, and in Cross Tekken he's my secondary character, but Jin Kazama's always been one of my favorite characters, and I'll play him in whatever game he's in, and even though he's not the best, to me, by dedicating my time to learning him, even though I felt like it's awkward, then I figured it out. For ages, I kind of felt like I was not confident enough in my main team, Lars Jin, to try any other character out. So that was pretty much my main team for ages. But when I learned to let loose and have fun, which I don't do too often, by have fun I don't mean like I don't have fun by playing, but rather it's like just play whatever, which I rarely do, because I always want to like try and do well with my team, and because I do enjoy playing my team. But when I finally kind of let loose and tried out different characters, I mean, now I play different teams, because now that I have a great grasp of Cross Tekken and a great grasp of the system and the characters seeing so much, I finally felt confident enough to play like Ryu Ken as a team, because I mean, obviously I knew how to play Ryu, but Ken didn't understand his dynamic that much, but after watching enough Ken play, I was able to do it. So now my teams went from, obviously I had Ryu Jin at first, Kazuya Jin, now it's what's his name, Lars Jin. But now I have a couple other teams. I've got Nina Jin, which, because obviously I learned how to use Nina, and I felt like her best partner was Jin for me personally. Then I learned how to use obviously Ryu Ken. Then the more fun teams, although I suppose Ryu Ken is just a bit of a silly team. Ryu Ken's the I don't care team, and I wanted to find a partner for Kazuya, and for a while it was Nina, but Nina to me felt more like a point character, so I put her with Jin, sorry. So I began to use Kazuya Juri. Juri's another character I wanted to use for a while, but I kind of felt like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to play this character properly. Like, I like pressing buttons with her, but am I playing effectively? So Kazuya Jin became one of my fun teams. Like, I don't play Kazuya anywhere near as much, but still knowing how to play him, putting him as a point character with Juri, who I'm learning, it was a good idea. And finally, my last team is Sakura Chun-Li. Two characters who I'd wanted to play for ages, as I said, just didn't have a general grasp to do that. And I think that's what is good to do. If you have the dedication, you'll reach a point where things that may seem unattainable will finally, make sense. That, the characters you wanted to play that you couldn't before, you can now. The execution you wanted to have that you couldn't try before, you can do now. And that's not going to come from just giving up. That's not going to come from just throwing in a towel and saying, yeah, I can't do it. It's too hard. I don't like it. I lose a lot. I mean, losing is an essential part of any competition. You can't win all the time. And, even if you do win all the time, it's difficult to keep winning. I mean, players who keep winning, they don't just do it like, for some magic. They have to train hard. They have to stay, vigilant to stay on top. And I think that's all part and parcel of dedication. So to end my talk about dedication with fighting games, to me it's just this. Just try it. Just try it out. Give it a shot. Do it. See where it gets you. And trust me, the rewards you'll get from it are always satisfying. So this has been JusticeSoulTuna with another Voice of JST. See everybody later.